Alrighty, looks like we're ready to get started. Hello, hello, everybody. I am Ghost Kuma, and I'll be doing the recent commentary for Petal Crash. Um, to give you just kind of a basic idea of what this game is. As I was alluding to in the intermission, this is a puzzle game, a block puzzle game. This game came out in 2020, developed by an indie studio named Friend and Fairy, and published by Galaxy Trail Games. Galaxy Trail is most known for the Freedom Planet games, as well as a few other niche but really cool little indie games. We're going to be doing the run of, no, I say, Lopraito is going to be doing the run of Grandmaster and Nightmare. The way story mode in this game works is you do 6 one-on-one battles, and then you do 7 one-on-one battles because there's an additional extra one that you get. You pick a character, you play against all of the other characters. There's not really a huge difference between any of them beyond cosmetics, and they all have their own little self-contained cute little stories. Lopraito likes to pick Yasodi, this centaur here. It's kind of a dancer. But to give you the basic gist / rundown of what this game is, it is a block puzzle game that is very much inspired by the likes of Panel de Pon, aka Tetris Attack, aka Pokemon Puzzle League, aka Pokemon Puzzle Challenge, as well as Puyo Puyo, aka Kirby's Avalanche, aka Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Stylized in like a Game Boy kind of aesthetic. All the music is chiptune, very cool soundtrack. Should have probably taken notes on the composer, but they do very good work. But yeah, so you're supposed to be doing battles against your opponents here. And as the name would suggest, the objective is to crash petals. In your board, you get these blocks in this 8x8 grid of petal blocks that spawn in 5 different colors: red, orange, or yellow. I'm not quite sure. It's somewhere in between. I'll probably say orange and yellow interchangeably. Green, blue, and violet. And if you crash them into each other, that sets off a chain reaction. For every block set that you crash in, any block that is adjacent to the 2 or more blocks of the same color that you crash into each other will be scattered. So, if you have 2 orange blocks and if you knock an orange block into an orange block, any red, like a red block is next to it, that red block will go off in the respective direction, and then if it collides with any other red blocks, those 2 crash and explode, and then that sets off the kind of chain reaction. So the big goal is to get several, chains, and that's how you're going to do damage in these battles. I believe Lopraito is going to be trying to go for unlocking the bonus fight in the story mode. In this category, it automatically shows up in Nightmare, which we'll get to that. But Lopraito wants to get a 7 chain at least once, which isn't super hard when you're, as good as Lopraito is, but just kind of something to keep a lookout. Now, the way this game works is your board, it doesn't actually advance normally in real time. It advances by moves. So you'll see that on some of the blank squares, randomly, there'll be sort of a dial. Now, every 8 moves you make, a block of that color will spawn. If a block is on top of it, if a block is on top of it, when you move the block that is on top of it, it'll spawn underneath it. The exception is garbage blocks, which pretty standard stuff in Puzzle Fair. You'll see on the screen the player Yasoti currently has a very colorful board, and the rival character, or Lopraito's opponent, Strelitz, is not having a good time. There are a lot of these gray X's. When you do chains in this game, you send over what are called garbage blocks. Pretty standard stuff like you'll see in Puyo, Tetris, or Panel / Puzzle League games, where the better you perform, the more garbage you spawn in your opponent's side of the field. Garbage is a little different from other types of blocks. You cannot move them, and The only way to clear them is to crash blocks next to them, but they don't set off the chain reaction. In short, garbage blocks are really bad. You don't want to have them. You want to send over as many of them as you can to your opponent. Now, garbage blocks are a little different. They take half as many moves, so rather than 8 moves, they spawn in 4 moves. And if there is a block on top of where a garbage block is supposed to spawn, that block gets deleted. So, Loprato's just setting up chains here now. I did say wants to get like a 7 chain, but against AI, fairly typical for puzzle speedruns. You don't necessarily want to get the biggest combos. You want to be consistently outputting garbage. So if you get like a 3 chain and then a 3 chain right after that, that's effective. You don't need to worry about really big chains because at some point, like, blocks are just going to spawn in the way, and that's just going to disrupt your chain, and that's no bueno. A lot of this game, it ultimately is really simple conceptually, but it takes a while to get going because you have to constantly be planning, when is this block, when am I going to knock something into this block and into this one, and setting off this just extended planned out chain reaction. But so getting like 3, 4, 5 chains is really good. Now, garbage is just really annoying to deal with because it just clutters your board. It's not useful for anything, and what Lopraito has really been doing at this point is, apart from just making a complete mockery of the hardest normal difficulty in the game, by just absolutely eviscerating his opponents, he's also going for overgrown. Now, an overgrown is when the board is full. There are 2 victory conditions in this game. The first of which is completely filling your opponent's board to which they cannot make a legal move. The second of which is to take out all the hearts on their screen. So you might be thinking, if the game's board state does not advance in real time, why bother doing anything? Well, you can see that there's 3 hearts on each side of the screen. That is kind of like your health. See, on the bottom of the screen, there are 2 meters, one for each player. Now, every time you do a chain, you take away part of your opponent's, I guess, health bar, you could describe it. And once you clear all of their health, that takes out 1 heart. You can win by taking out all 3 of your opponent's hearts. It's usually slow, so I don't think Lopraito is going to be really trying to go for that at any point during this run. But what that effectively means is that trying to go for a stalemate will cause you to lose the game. So it does still have a real-time component. The other thing I haven't really touched on is you can actually hold down the control button on a PC keyboard to advance the game state. Basically, this is just like skipping a bunch of moves really quickly. This doesn't affect the timer in real time on the bottom, which ticks down over time. It's like a 35 seconds. If you haven't done enough damage, then whoever has the more health at the end of that phase will, or whoever has less health will lose a heart, and then they'll just reset. This is basically to just keep from like infinite stalemate matches from happening. So to encourage action, and action is good. So the basic gist of the story mode of this game is there's like 7-ish characters. You pick one, and then you go and you play against all of the other ones. There's a kind of little story to it where every character is kind of trying to collect these 7 objects, and those will grant a wish. And so it's just this cute little game, very much stylized like old Game Boy games. I really like the aesthetic of this game. It's kind of what turned me on to it, but I'm also a huge fan of games like Puzzle League and Tetris Attack, so it's kind of a no-brainer. If you're really into those games, I highly suggest that you check it out. So here we have the new challenger approaching. This is character's name is Arlet. This is kind of just like a bonus thing that happens if you get that 7 chain. I believe for the Grandmaster category, you have to do this fight, but I might be a little bit mistaken. Typically on the speedrun leaderboards of this game, the goal is for a 1 credit clear, or 1 CC for short, which effectively means deathless, no resets. In this game, the enemy AI is supposed to like get a little bit quicker by the as you play better, the enemy difficulty goes up a little bit. If you die or lose a fight, it like lowers it just a little bit on the scaling. Grandmaster starts at 10, which is the highest that it is enabled by default. But we'll get to Nightmare fairly quickly. Now, Lopraito is just doing a really good job, just sending absolute truckloads of garbage and clearing these fights incredibly quickly. Challenge all the way up to 14.5. So we're coming up on the second to last match of the Grandmaster difficulty. Is this MLP? No, one of the main characters just happens to be a centaur. They're, in fact, a dancer. Although, with the cutesy aesthetic, I could kind of understand why you might say that. But now this game has nothing to do, has very little to even do with horses. Yeah, so a lot of this game really just comes down to learning the best ways to get chains set up. A thing I haven't really touched on, you have to actually physically collide the blocks into each other. Putting them next to each other does nothing. Although usually putting blocks next to each other is how you get pretty extensive chain reactions. However, they need to actually crash into each other for you to set off the chain reaction. And yeah, that's basically it for the core mechanics. A lot of this game is just very tempo-driven. You really want to be trying to outspeed your opponent as best as you can, because the more garbage they have, the less that they really have to work with, which in turn means that it's harder for them to set up more chains. In that sense, I find personally this game to be a lot more close to like a Puyo type game. If you've ever played, any of the old Puyo games, where like you see garbage on your side of the screen, it just kind of ruins your chains. So that's a very tempo-based game. Like you send a lot of garbage over to your opponent's screen, they really don't have much chance. Alright, so this is the final rematch with Lilybreed. This is the last match of the Grandmaster, but there is more. We'll get to that in a moment. Yeah, at this point, basically most of this is, I would say, second nature to the runner. So had a bit of a tempo disadvantage here. So keep in mind, that each player is given 3 additional chances. Grandmaster's kind of a good way to like start this run because it's a good place to explain the core mechanics and kind of just give you a sense of the game. But it is, as much as I think this game can be a little bit obtuse, the core concept is really simple to grasp. So that should be it for the Grandmaster difficulty. But next up is Nightmare. So now that you've gotten a feel for it, this is when the difficulty ramps up to, honestly, kind of obscene levels. Grandmaster differs from Nightmare in a few ways. The first of which we'll see here in just a second after Lopraito skips the story text. It only has 1 heart. And That basically means there is no margin for error. The other thing that you might notice is that blocks are sliding way quicker than they were the first time. Uh, this is because there is a option in this game called Turbo, which is enabled by default on Nightmare. Um, and that causes blocks to move twice as fast and accelerates most animations. So if you're playing at this level, you need to be like instant. Like this needs to be just, like, don't think, only Petal Crash type types of speed. Still doing pretty well in this first fight, setting over enough garbage that I think Lopraito's got this like right off the bat. And well done. So to give you an idea of how ridiculously difficult Nightmare is to actually perform, as far as we're aware, out of the few to several thousand people in this game, I say it's hard to track sales because they're different versions. But out of the however many thousands of people who have played / owned this game, we're only aware of 9 people who have completed Nightmare. Lopraito, I think, was like the 4th or 5th one. There's 6 times on the speedrun.com leaderboard, and a few others were known to do it, but it's a pretty elusive club, or exclusive club. So to be able to do this in a marathon setting means he's really good at the game, and also very confident. And I believe that's part of where the estimate comes into play. Matches in this game can take a fairly inconsistent amount of time just by the basis of sometimes your rivals, sometimes they're really like, they play really well or just get really lucky, and sometimes fights can go really quickly because the AI in these games are an art, not a science. Although let's not get too into the topic of AI art at this point. Like if you've ever seen like runs of like a Puzzle League type game, it's like world record will be like 12 minutes, and then the estimate will be like 40 because there's just so much room for error. And like every match can, either be really quick or it can be kind of drawn out. The nice thing about this game is that fights have a pretty clear time limit, so you never have to worry about a fight getting dragged on just ad infinitum. But it does mean that there's enough variability. I personally have only played this game and beaten it on the hard difficulty, so just kind of like watching, the way like these chain reactions are set up, and I just see like 3 and 4 chains just completely just like out of nowhere. It's just like this takes quite a bit of practice to get used to. Like I don't think I can overstate like how difficult some of these like how difficult they can be to play at this speed on a high difficulty, because it's not just like beat Nightmare, it's also do it quickly. Like if you're really good but not like at Lopraito's level, like really good, you can probably play just well enough to clear 3 hearts, but to get overgrowns on Nightmare, just like he's trying to go fast. I believe he was saying he was having some trouble in this particular match against Orchid, which I feel like that's meant to be a pun. The name here. I mean, there's a character named Lilybrie and a character and a bunch of characters whose names just sound like flower puns. So I think calling this character Orchid was like meant to be a pun. But Lopraito was having some trouble on this, so that was very quick. Like didn't even need to take out a heart. That was like a 13-second match going off of the timer on the bottom. So, like, just oh man, I say 13 seconds, but like they use in-game timer and it said 25 seconds. So I guess I can't count. I was just going off the time on the bottom. There are a few different options for settings. You can change the suits on your tiles. Lopraito is just using regular petals here, but you'll see that there's a slightly different color variation on the right. I'm guessing sort of like a colorblind option or something. There's also one for like, changing it to like clubs, hearts, diamonds, that kind of stuff. So usually these kinds of games have variants if you have trouble recognizing the suits on the actual tiles, or in this game, blocks/petals. Kind of one of the difficult things to really get used to is because blocks spawn at random points, and with random colors, is you really need to, like, when you're setting up a chain, account for new incoming spawns. Sometimes you can actually find that they'll help you make an even bigger chain. Other times they just get in your way, and so sometimes they pose like an obstacle that you need to move around, but sometimes they also pose as like a time limit for how many moves that you need to set up your next chain. So I have 3 more matches here on Nightmare. Also see how these all go. But yeah, I think only at one point has it even seemed like remotely in danger. Has Lopraito even seemed remotely in danger? So this is going very well for marathon setting. That's a was saying the game does use an in-game time for the leaderboards, so whatever the real time is doesn't matter, especially for the sake of like tracking tracking how well the run is going compared to others. But yeah. Just a giant mess of garbage on that opponent's side. Just absolute clean match. Also kind of like other puzzle games where when you get to like a particular level with this game, you actually see them like start to like intentionally spawn blocks. It might seem as if that's a dangerous move to do, and it is if you're not like super prepared or super skilled with the game. But by setting up the board to have as many of these blocks from the get-go, you can start planning on bigger chains a lot sooner. And so even though the board looks more full and Lopraito looks like there's more danger, it is kind of one of those all according to plan situations. So like this is calculated, this is intentional. And so now actually, like, Lopraito doesn't want to fill up the board and just knows that he has it, so he just waits. Alright, so on to the very last match of the category. And time will be, I guess, on the overgrown for this, but this has been very top-notch pedal crashing. For any one of you who looks at this game and says, you really enjoyed games like Panel de Pon or Puzzle Attack or, Tetris Attack or Puyo Puyo or any of these block puzzle games, I highly recommend this game. It's really cute. It's very nostalgic, but it has like its own set of mechanics that are just really rewarding to learn. It's just a very fun, rewarding game to play and get better at. Uh-oh. A lot of garbage. Lopraito is on the ropes here. This is actually looking kind of grim. Retro. Aww. That's a huge bummer. So, unfortunate. So the thing with Nightmare that also makes it difficult that I haven't touched on is it is required to be a 1cc. If you cannot defeat the second Wooly there, you fail the attempt. You have to start all the way back from the very first match of the category. So, instead of, trying again because, this run's already coming closer to its estimate, Lopraito's just going to go into the, versus one CPU, set the game to emulate Nightmare, turn turbo mode on, set the AI to the difficulty level of 15, which is the maximum that it goes to, and give this another go just to give the run a bit of closure. Yeah, it's unfortunate wasn't able to get the 1cc, but still just very solid gameplay. So this looks like this will be the killing blow. I say killing, but this game is cute and wholesome, so defeat, I guess. So very well done. Definitely follow Lopraito. He's just incredibly good at puzzle games like this. And yeah. So that should do it for the Petal crashing. Check out this game on Steam. It's, I really wish there were more puzzle games that, come out with, these new kinds of, block puzzle ideas. It's, based on kind of a similar formula to those that have worked for, other series, but they don't make these very often. At best, you might get, a Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, which combines two existing really long-running kinds of franchises. And I love Puyo Tetris as well, but it's cool to see more of this, type of block puzzle game coming out. So definitely recommend checking it out. Check out Lopraito's channel. I guess check out my channel. This is not a game that I run, but I have done commentary for 3 runs of this event. So for whatever reason you're interested in that. But yeah, I've been Ghost Kumo. This has been RTA in Japan English restreaming on SpeedGaming. Coming up next, I don't believe we have a restream commentator for it, but it is going to be Catherine by Reneru. So, keep watching the marathon. This is a really cool, really chill marathon. And so, finally been able to support a charity, in this case, Doctors Without Borders. Which is, a very special and very important charity to many of us in the speedrunning community, those of us who have been, supporting Summer Games Done Quick past several years. But anyways, that'll be it for me. Thanks all for watching, and have a good night.